Chris here, and welcome to my channel. For today's 5 on Friday, I'm going to talk about 5 books I really enjoyed, but likely won't ever reread. First up is 11/22/63 by Stephen King. So this is probably the only Stephen King book I can picture myself ever picking up. It's a historical fiction with a sci-fi twist, and we're basically following this man who has been introduced to basically this rip in time, and he can go through this rip in time, and he is sent back to prevent Kennedy from being assassinated. But because of the rules of the way time travel work in this book, this rip in time leads back to a fixed point in time, which is like 5 years before Kennedy is assassinated. And he can't get any closer to the point when Kennedy is assassinated, so he has to live 5 years in the past, which also gives him plenty of time to put into motion plans to prevent Kennedy from being assassinated using the knowledge he has from present day. And I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was quite interesting, but now that I've read it and I know what happens, I can't picture myself picking it up again. This is definitely one of those where it feels like a one and done. I already know the story. It is over 800 pages, so it's a very, very long book. And there were times when it definitely had a bit of a slower pace, and given that I know what happens, I don't know that I would want to sit through a reread of that book again. So while I really enjoyed it, it's not one I can see myself picking up and giving a reread. The second book on this list is The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. The reason this book is on this list is because I absolutely loved this book. I gave it 5 stars, absolutely adored it, and then disliked both of its sequels. So I cannot see myself picking up the first book in this trilogy, even though I loved it, when I have no intentions of picking up books 2 and 3 and rereading them. So basically, we're following a woman named Essen, and her world has kind of fallen apart. She comes home to find that her husband has murdered her son and kidnapped her daughter, and she has to go after them because she wants to get her daughter back. But at the same time, a giant catastrophic event is happening with ash spewing into the air, and there's no clean water, and the world just isn't safe to be traveling right now, but she has no choice but to go after her child. There are also 2 other points of view, and I know that one of the divisive things about this book is the fact that one of the points of view is told in second person, and a lot of people find that jarring and struggle to get past that. I didn't. I found that it worked really well. By the time I got to the end of the book, I loved it. But the sequels really, really let me down, and I did not enjoy them anywhere near as much as the first book. So I definitely see no need to reread the first book when I'm not going to be reading the sequels. So in that same vein, the third book I'm going to talk about is Legendary by Stephanie Garber. This is the second book in the Caraval trilogy, and I really enjoyed this book. But I was not a huge fan of the first one or the third one. So while I love this second one, I see no way I will pick up the first or the third book in the trilogy. So I highly doubt I will ever just sit down and read the second one, because I feel like I would have forgotten enough details from the first one that the second book just wouldn't make sense. So I don't know that I would enjoy it as much upon a reread if I hadn't read the first book beforehand. And like I said, I don't want to reread the first book. This series follows sisters Scarlett and Tella, and Scarlett has always wanted to kind of escape the little island they live on, and Tella isn't as interested in that. Another thing Scarlett has always wanted to do is go to Caraval, which is a kind of once-in-a-year performance, and it is highly well-known and highly popular, and Scarlett really wants to go, and Tella ends up making this happen for Scarlett. Unfortunately, once they get there, Tella is kidnapped by the organizer of Caraval, and Scarlett has to try to find a way to get her back. So the premise of this book was great. I didn't like the execution as much in the first book. I really loved the way things progressed in the second book. But it's not a series as a whole that I'm going to reread, so as much as I love the second book, I will probably never reread it. Next up is Cinder by Marissa Meyer, and honestly, the Lunar Chronicles as a whole. This is a series that I got into back when I got into reading again, and it feels like one that, while I really enjoyed it at the time, if I were to reread it now, I would not enjoy it anywhere near as much. So I can't see myself rereading it, mainly because I want to keep those fond feelings for these books, and I'm fairly certain if I reread them, I won't enjoy them anywhere near as much. So Cinder is basically a retelling of Cinderella, and we're following Cinder, And Cinder is a cyborg and is basically put to work by her family. And they live in a more of a futuristic world. Like, this doesn't take place in present time, it takes place in a future. And so it's basically a Cinder retelling with a futuristic sci-fi twist. And then its sequels, Scarlet, Cress, and Winter, are also retellings, I believe, of Red Riding Hood, Rapunzel, and Snow White. I really enjoyed this series at the time, but I just don't think I would enjoy it as much on reread, and I'd rather keep the fond memories I have than ruin the series for myself. And lastly, I have She Came to Slay, The Life and Times of Harriet Tubman by Erica Armstrong Dunbar. So this is a biography about Harriet Tubman, and the reason I probably will never reread this is for that exact reason. It's a biography. I've already read it. If I want to read more about Harriet Tubman and learn more about Harriet Tubman's life, I would want to pick up other books so I could learn maybe different things as opposed to rereading the same book and getting the same information out of it. So basically, I can't see myself rereading this because I already know all the information contained in it, and I would want to learn something new about Harriet Tubman as opposed to rereading material I already know. That said, this was a fantastic book, and if you are at all interested in Harriet Tubman and her history, I highly recommend you check it out. So those are 5 books I really enjoyed that I will likely never reread. Is there any book that comes to mind that you really enjoyed but likely wouldn't reread? If so, let me know in the comment section below. If you've made it this far in the video, leave me a cake emoji, like this video, and subscribe to my channel, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye!